It happens to all leaders at some point. They become the boss. Sometimes leaders are prepared to take on their new role. Other times, they are not. The most important thing is that leaders understand their position, their level of experience, and take action to continuously improve themselves. Sometimes, though, a little help is all needed to make new leaders into great ones. Today, my guest, Peter Economy, and I discuss topics such as building teams and teamwork, leading organizational change, communicating effectively, delegation, and so much more. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast, episode 117. Wait, I'm the boss? With the leadership guy, Peter Economy. Welcome one, welcome all to the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast. It's your Chief Leadership Officer, Scott McCarthy, and welcome to the podcast revolving around the three domains of leadership, and that is leading yourself, leading your team, and leading your organization. Why? So that you can be the best leader that you can be, so that you can drive and meld those team dynamics and build relationships, and also increase that output, that organizational output that we all strive to do. So you've come to the right place. And today, I got a doozy of a guest for you all, folks. Peter, the leadership guy economy. Actually, I just made that up. He goes by the leadership guy, Peter Economy, but I kind of like it in the middle, right? Kind of gives that little MMA boxing feel to it. Nonetheless, the guy's written over 100 books. He's written more than 1,500 columns. He is the leadershipguyinc.com. And guess what? Yes, all those books and columns are all around leadership topics. He routinely works with C-level execs, executive coach, business consultants worldwide. He does it all, and he is a superstar guest. And that's why he is here at the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast. Why? Because I get world-class guests for you to help you and even me become better leaders. So that's why we're here, folks. And you know what? No need to drag this intro out any longer. So why don't we get to it? Time to deliver you the goods. So sit back, relax, and listen to my interview of Wait, I'm the Boss with the leadership guy, Peter Economy. Peter, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you here.
Hey, thanks so much, Scott. I'm great. Great to be here.
So today we're talking about your book, Wait, I'm the Boss. And I'm going to have to preempt and do a little preamble and say, here at Moving Forward Leadership, I generally look at boss in a negative connotation. So when I talk about being a boss, what I'm trying to do is turn people into leaders and not bosses. And so what I mean, my, definition of boss would be that negative person right now. I know you're actually talking about, turning people into leaders. So I guess my first critique of your book say, hey, wait, I'm the leader, not the boss.
Yeah, I get that for sure, because clearly it's a negative connotation. And I get that because, everybody wants to be a really good leader. And I don't think there's any leader who doesn't want to be a better leader. But so many bosses do get bad, get bad raps. And there's a reason why, because they are bad leaders. They just don't either know how to lead, or they don't want to lead, or something else. In fact, according to Gallup, having a bad boss, a bad leader, is the number one reason why people quit their jobs.
100%.
So, there are a lot of them out there, and that's sort of what I think what you're doing is trying to grow better leaders. That's what I'm doing too. I agree. We could retitle the book or maybe I'll put a sticker on it, leader instead of boss.
That works out. And honestly, that's not a harsh criticism or anything.
No,
I just needed to throw that out there so the audience doesn't get confused, right? But you talked about it, and I love the basic essence of the book, because you hit the nail on the head, is that so many people out there get put in leadership roles They become, the quote unquote boss, and they don't know how to actually be the boss in terms of being a good boss and becoming actually a leader. And that's what I love about your book, because it's aimed and geared 100% towards these people. So my first real question is, where did this inspiration come from? Because I think it's one of the biggest voids out there right now.
Yeah. Well, I've written a lot of articles on Inc.com. So I'm the leadership guy on Inc.com. And I've written a lot of articles, over 1,500 articles on Inc. And, many of those were about leadership. Since I'm the leadership guy, I guess I should make sure a lot of them are about leadership. But some of those are about, just like what we're talking about, people who have been thrust into leadership positions who've never been trained to be a leader. And I think there's just super common out there. That's what happened to me when I was, going up into an organization. Originally, I worked for the Department of Defense here in the United States, and I was a contract negotiator. I negotiated contracts. So that was my job. I was never trained beyond negotiation skills. I went to, many different schools in the Department of Defense and learned negotiation skills. That was my thing. But eventually, I worked for private industry. I was hired away by a software company in San Diego. And I worked as a negotiator for maybe the first year or so. And then all of a sudden they said, we want to put you in charge of a group of people. And I said, great. Hey, that's super. I'll get paid more. I'll be a manager. This is great. I'll be a leader. And, going up the organization, maybe someday I'll be the CEO or something, it's that dream. But anyway, so I was put into that position and I was never given any training. The only training I got was just doing it, and trial and error. So my boss never sat down with me and said, here's how you do it. I was never sent to any course. Here's how to do it. Never given any books. Here's how to do it. Just sort of felt my way through it. And that was fine. I think it worked out pretty well. But later in my career, before I became a full-time writer, I was put in charge of a 500-person organization, and that was just an utter failure on my part, to be honest. Should never have been hired for that job. I didn't have the skills to really manage a 500-person organization, and so that's sort of been my inspiration all along. I'd like people to learn leadership before they're put into leadership positions. I think the military does a really good job of that, clearly. But many big companies do the same. Many large, Fortune 500 companies have leadership training. But there's a lot of companies that are small to medium that don't do anything at all.
That's super interesting story. And yeah, 500 people. Wow. My largest organization I've led so far is 200. So I can only imagine the challenges that would have come from that. And you hit something there which not many people do, or bosses don't do, leaders definitely do. And that is you took responsibility for it. You said you weren't ready for that challenge. Many people would, others would go ahead and blame, I wasn't properly supported, or the organization set me up for failure, blah, blah, blah. But you said, I didn't have the skill sets for that. I wasn't ready for that challenge. Just to show that, the quality and where your headspace is. But yeah, I really like what you're getting at, because I feel very much the same way. There's so many people out there who are just like, okay, they're thrown into, that manager role. Sales is probably the number one example out there. Oh, you can sell? Great. Run a sales team. Well, running a sales team is not selling. Right? There's a different aspect. There's a different dynamic to it. Yet so many people get thrown in that. And you know what? Some people sink, and a couple others swim, but it's not the best way to do it. So filling that void is so crucial for me. So
exactly.
Let's talk about some of these core aspects of the book and some of these core things that you're trying to, gear people in towards becoming true leaders,
right,
as they move through, and get promoted. So what are some of these things that you're highlighting?
Well, I think the key thing right off the bat is that an organization should train leaders. I mean, that's what this book is all about, is providing leaders with the skills, the basic skills they need, everything from hiring to firing to, promoting to motivating to rewarding, all these different skill sets. And like you just touched on with sales. So here you are, you've gone through this career, you've been a super successful salesperson, you've sold just gobs and gobs of whatever, widgets or cars or refrigerators, whatever it is you've sold. And they take you, and you're so successful that they take you and, like you said, make you the head of sales or a sales manager. And all of a sudden you're out of water. You're like a fish out of water. So, I think the key thing here is providing leaders with the skills they need to lead. And you shouldn't just throw someone in the pool and ask them to swim and swim and swim and swim and then potentially drown. I think you do it gradually. You do it a step at a time. And again, these large Fortune 500s, military, other organizations do this really well, where they don't put you in charge of like they did me, a 500-person organization, going from 10 people to 500 literally overnight. Mm-hmm. You work up to it. You do a 5-person group, a team. You do a 10-person organization. You go to 25. You go to 100, that kind of thing. And you work your way up the organization. So you've got to work people into that. So again, the book certainly highlights that, and gaining those skills, one step at a time. So that's the first thing I would say.
Yeah, that training piece is so big. And the funny thing is, I totally agree with you. Large organizations generally do it well. It's the medium-sized ones that are having the biggest struggle, right?
Yeah,
and they think it has to be formal. They think they have to bring in, send people on some kind of course, or they have to bring in coaches and all this stuff, and they miss the most basic thing, and that is just delegation. Testing people out. Mm-hmm. The manager is going on holidays for 2 weeks or even a week. All right, let's put someone else in that role for that week. See how they do. Give them a little bit of experience, or put a little bit more responsibilities on that person for a trial period of a couple months, and see how they do, and just kind of train them informally that way. And I feel like so many organizations just miss that boat.
Yeah, and it's not even the organization so much as it's the individual manager or leader who misses the boat, because ultimately, I've probably done it myself many times too, where I've just said, you know what, I can get this done faster and better, 10 times faster, 100 times better if I just do it myself. So I'll just do it myself instead of assigning it to someone else, one of my employees. And that's the biggest mistake any leader, I think, can make, because you can't do it all. No leader can do it all, and you shouldn't do it all, and you can't be expected to do it all. You can't lead a 500-person organization all by yourself. It's not going to work. You have to have key people working for you who lead along the way. So delegating, like exactly as you said, trying people out, giving them, and I work a lot in the agile world. I've been doing a lot of technology books lately and working in agile, and you experiment. You do these experiments. You do these short cycled experiments, and then you get the results, and then you look at it and you learn, and then you apply the learnings to the next experiment. You do these cycles. It's like this lean organization, lean thinking kind of thing. And you do the same when you delegate. You say, okay, employee, John, come on over here, John. I've got this thing that I do. I've got this report that I do every week. I'd like you to compile it for me. Can you please go out and get the results, the information for the report, put it together, put it into a spreadsheet. Here's some examples. I'll walk you through it, how I do it. And then I'd like you to be responsible for that every week. And, we'll meet the first couple weeks and make sure you're doing it properly. Make sure you have any questions, we can work through that. And then once they're up and running, then they can take that task over. And then you do something else. You say, like you said, so I'm going on vacation for 2 weeks. Whoever's next in line, let's give you a try. Let's have you take over for a week. And we'll have somebody else take over for a week. I mean, I think the biggest thing that I've seen with leaders, the first way to know that you're not delegating properly is if you can't take off on vacation without worrying about the organization falling apart. And that's the biggest sign for any organization. When the leader leaves and it falls apart, there's a real big problem there in delegation.
I absolutely agree, and I love that last point of not being able to go away and not worry. Right? So many people that are like, "Oh, I can't take a couple of days off. I can't leave." I'm like, what do you mean you can't go on holidays? Like, the world is not going to fall apart. The building will not burn down if you go away for a week. Go away, have a vacation, because guess what? You're going to come back a million times more effective, because you're going to be able to just get away from the stressors of the office, get away from all those mental blocks that are around you. And you know what? You're going to come back with more solutions than problems.
And that's very true. Exactly.
Hmm.
And if they can't, if the place does fall apart when they're gone, then you know they've got a problem. That leader needs help. That leader's not properly delegating. That leader's not leading well. Because it could fall apart. I mean, I've seen it fall apart when someone takes off, and they haven't built the structure, they haven't built the infrastructure of their organization, so it can run on its own when they're gone.
I think that's actually a huge point, because for new leaders out there, they end up becoming the bottleneck. And I always tell my clients, my coaching clients, you can't be that bottleneck. You can't be the sole decision maker for every single thing, because everything is going to ride on you. And if you're stuck in an all-day conference meeting where you can't, go to your phone or you can't have access to everything, things are going to grind down to a halt, and that's what's going to hurt you in the long run.
And that's another great point, is the bottleneck, becoming a decision bottleneck. When a leader doesn't work with their people, doesn't put decision making out to the front lines, then everything will grind to a halt if they're out of the pocket. I mean, especially now. I mean, I don't know when this is going to run, but with this coronavirus thing, people are disappearing. I mean, it's like a science fiction movie, where all of a sudden someone's disappeared and they're a key decision maker. Now what? If that person hasn't trained leaders under them, other leaders who are working with them to pick up and make those decisions, if they aren't already making those decisions, then how are they supposed to make them now when they haven't been in the loop, when they haven't been a part of the decision-making process? And that's a huge potential problem for any organization or any leader who hasn't taken the time or doesn't have the inclination to, filter decision-making down throughout the organization.
No, it's so true. And the ongoing coronavirus is definitely testing the leadership skills of so many people out there. It's incredible. And a lot of good things coming out too. A lot of organizations, a lot of companies immediately saying, regardless, they're going to take care of their people, pay wise, and stuff like that. So it's actually refreshing to see, because for so long you just hear negative stories of how organizations have just cared about their bottom line, have basically not taken care of their people, and so on and so forth. You mentioned something earlier which I wanted to hit at, that we kept going, so it could let us go, but I want to boomerang back to it, and that was you kind of hit on ego. Right. And often what you get I find with new leaders, people who are just promoted into those leadership roles, they show up like, yes, I've made it. I'm there. I'm the decision maker. I'm the man. I'm the woman. I'm the boss. I'm in charge. And they really hold that ego. I like to hear your thoughts about ego and its impacts on the leader and how a leader should actually go about it. The top is the loneliest place. Colin Powell said that once. But it doesn't have to be. Instead, you can find people to talk to, people to run ideas by, people to help you figure out solutions to the problems that you're facing right now as a leader. And see, I felt alone once, and I decided to start the podcast. And with the podcast, I decided that I needed to help people like you more. So that's why I started the Pivot for Leadership Facebook group. Leadership skills for managers to be leaders, not bosses. You can find it at movingforwardleadership.com/group. and come join us. It's completely free for you to join us and talk leadership with us day in, day out. So check us out again at movingforleadership.com/group. Now back to the show and its impacts on the leader and how a leader should actually go about it.
Yeah, I think that every leader has to have some ego. I think that anyone who, takes a position of prominence in an organization has to have some ego, but not a destructive ego that puts them above everyone else. And, that's what we see often in organizations where a leader will put themselves above anyone, their people. There's a book, boy, what is that book? I don't remember the name right off the bat, but it's about that. What is it? The leader who eats lunch with his people or something.
Leaders eat last.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So leaders eat last. Yeah, and that really says it all. I think the leader is in a support role. I think the leader's job is to support his or her people and put them above. It's like an inverted pyramid. I think the leader's in a way at the bottom. And here's your people next, and then here's your customers and the communities. It goes up, to the top. I mean, ultimately, you're supporting your community, you're supporting the world. And I know every employee wants to be making a difference in the world. That's what, everyone wants to have a purpose. And if a leader is not, tying their employees into a purpose, into a greater purpose, or if their ego means so much more to them that they keep pushing down their people and trying to, in some cases, make them feel bad. I mean, I've seen that happen a lot, yelling and screaming and things like that, negative behaviors, toxic behaviors on the parts of bosses, which again leads to this Gallup statistic about bad bosses being the number one cause for people to, quit their jobs. So yeah, ego can be very destructive, and I think every leader needs a little bit of ego, but in a positive way. Enough to step up and say, "Sure, I'll take charge. I'll try to lead this organization. I'll bring it. So I'll try to bring value to customers and to the world." That's some ego there, but not the destructive kind of ego that puts themselves above other people.
I kind of look at it in a continuum, right? You got on the far right, you have that destructive ego. On the far left, you have that, completely inept person that can't make a decision, has no self-confidence, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And I feel like leaders need to be kind of in that middle zone, leaning, like you said, though, a little bit leaning to the right towards that destructive ego, but nowhere near it.
Right.
In a confidence, right? You have confidence in your decision-making abilities. You have confidence in your ability to lead and stuff like this, but it's not destructive. It's not to the point where you're putting people down. And often when I have leadership clients and ones who are relatively new, I often tell them, they're like, "Great, I'm there." I'm like, "Yeah, great. Let it go now. Let these powers go. Empower your people, delegate stuff like this, so that you can actually sit back and look at the strategic view, the long-term view."
Right.
You definitely have to have that confidence, because if you don't, then people aren't going to follow you.
Yeah, I mean that's really you've got that exactly right. You've got to be inspiring. You've got to inspire people. You've got to have a vision of the future that's a better, something to strive for. So leaders are naturally confident, I think, and I guess confident people maybe gravitate toward leadership. I don't know which comes first. It's a chicken and egg kind of thing. Is it the confidence that makes a better leader, or is it the leadership that makes more confidence? I'm not sure, but clearly, as long as it's not destructive and as long as it leads to confidence and a vision and purpose for the people who work for them, then it's all good.
You're doing a nice dovetail into the next question, and that is, you have this aspect or this section of the book where it's 3 things anyone can do better as a leader, as a manager, and being inspirational is one of the 3. So why don't you bring us down the road of the other 2 and explain them to the listener for us?
Okay. So in addition to being inspiring, I believe leaders need to be optimistic. And right now everybody needs to be optimistic, but clearly when you have a group of people, you've got a team of people, you want them to follow, you want them to do good things, create value for customers. You've got to be optimistic about the future. You've got to be optimistic about what your company is doing out there in the world. You've got to always think that we're going to do better. We're going to make better products, deliver better services. We're going to do it more efficiently, more effectively. We're always going to improve. And by doing that, we're going to make money for our organization, which ultimately is what we're in business for, is to make money. But that's a natural byproduct of this optimism, of thinking of the future as being a better place that we're going to arrive at eventually, just by working and working together as a team. So that's another one of them, optimism. And then I think, one of the most important things for leaders is to be honest and transparent, truthful. So many leaders, and I've seen this in the past when I worked in organizations, is that leaders try to hide the truth from their people, afraid that their people can't take it. So, for example, maybe they had a bad quarter. Maybe the revenues were down. Maybe profit was really bad. Maybe they lost a big client, something like that. And instead of telling their people that, we just lost this big client, it was a quarter of our revenue, they'll try to hide that and not tell the employees, because they don't want the employees to be distracted or to be depressed or bummed out or whatever it might be. And they're really not doing anybody a favor by doing that. They're not really and it's not really being dishonest. It's just not being truthful. And I think as a leader, the thing that you've got is your reputation. I think the number one thing you've got is the trust you build with your people and your reputation. And if you're not truthful, you're going to destroy your reputation. You're going to destroy the trust that you've built with your people. And you've got to have their trust to get through tough times and good, together.
The experience is just flowing from you right there, Peter. I got nothing to add to follow up on with that stuff. I would say that, even with everything that's going on right now, and this, we're right in the thick. The recording of this episode is the 24th of March. Now, this won't air for a few months yet, just because I'm so far ahead in recording. But still, difficult times provide opportunities as well. And I think what you're truly getting at is leaders need to look at those opportunities. Yep, we've lost the client, or we've had a difficult quarter, stuff like that. But where's the opportunity that's with that difficulty? And you need to double down on those, right? You need to focus on those.
Exactly, and people need to know that, so maybe they can come up with ideas too. Maybe they'll say, there's this other company that we could work with, and maybe now I'll pursue that. Now that I know we need to pursue something else, maybe,
right.
You can tap your people for ideas and for suggestions and get them more motivated by knowing that they've really got to help. People want to help. People, employees want to help. They want to give their best every day. They don't come to work saying, I want to do a lousy job today.
Mm-hmm.
I want to work for a loser company. No, nobody wants that.
Well, as well, I think they're also the best source of information
Right.
for the reason why it happened in the first place, right? Like, maybe your product is garbage. Maybe your communication strategy is the problem. Maybe your clients didn't understand anymore, or maybe you fell behind and your competition showed up and swept them out. But they're the ones, right? They're the ones that have that information, because they're the ones that are out there doing the work on your behalf. They're the ones in the front lines.
Exactly. Yeah, the front lines employees, the ones who are with customers, who are out there, visiting the customers, often salespeople, often technicians, could be anybody, who's actually on the customer sites, who's calling customers, who's hearing their complaints, hearing their good stories, the bad stories. I know in organizations I've worked in before that often those messages don't get to the top they're filtered out before, because for some reason maybe a middle manager has decided that they don't want the bad information to flow up to the chain of command up to the top of an organization. So they filter it out, and that's a huge problem for organizations, because you're right. I mean, I think the very best information comes from the front line, the people who are the men and women who are out there with customers, with clients, every day, day in, day out.
No, this has been great. Peter, man, as we wind down here, I got a couple last questions for you. The first one is, if you got one piece of advice, just one piece of advice to someone brand new, first-time leader, which actually is a fair chunk of the listening audience out there, or are there managers who realize that, you know what, I need help in this gig. I've been in it now for a little while, and I don't have the skills, that are listening as well, who are prime audience for your book. So you got that one piece of advice for them. What would it be?
That one piece of advice would be to find a mentor, to find someone who can help you become a better leader. So most organizations, and especially the larger they are, have people that are good managers. There are people who can show you how to become a better manager, a better leader yourself. And I think, first of all, to emulate those people, pick out the best leaders in your own organization, emulate them, then ask them just physically, and ask them if they can, mentor you. If you could, if they would help you learn the ropes, learn what it takes to be a good leader. I think that's really the one thing, beyond just reading books, beyond reading, watching videos, that kind of training. I think if you can affiliate with someone who's a good leader, emulate them, and if they'll take the time to actually mentor you, that's gold. That's really going to be super helpful for you. And then you can give back. When you become a good leader yourself, you should mentor other people as they're coming up the organization.
Absolutely love it. I'm going to take a second to throw a selfless, shameless plug for myself, and that yes, I am open for coaching clients. I'm not full at the moment, although there are only a couple slots. So if you're interested, I do offer coaching to the listener. Feel free. I have no issues in helping people mentor. Peter, last couple of questions. The final real question being a question I ask all the guests here at Moving Forward Leadership, and that is to you, Peter Economy. What makes a great leader?
A great leader is someone who listens. I think the best leaders listen to their people, and they don't just listen, but they really hear what people are saying, and they consider what they hear, and they use that to learn and to do better things as leaders. So I think listening is really the key skill for any leader.
Awesome. And now it's your turn for a shameless plug. Where can people find you? Where can they follow you? I'm pretty sure they might have heard of you before. And where can they find the book, most importantly?
Right. Well, the book itself is on Amazon.com. It's there waiting to be bought, or you can go to my website, petereconomy.com. And there's right there on the front page is a copy of the book. And then you can click on that and go to the purchase site and buy a copy.
Awesome. For the listeners, always, it's easy for you. Go to movingforwardleadership.com/117. And all the links are in the show notes for you. Peter, again, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor to have someone who's so entrenched in this space on the show. And it's really shown tonight.
Thank you so much, Scott. I really enjoyed it.
All right, that's all I got for you fine folks today. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoyed the interview. And most importantly, I hope you got something out of it. And if you did, remember, R squared, S squared, right? Rate and review the show so that it gets a little bit noticed, a bit more. But most importantly, I can help more people, because that's what I'm here for. That's what my guests are here for, is to help more people become better leaders and not being bosses, right? So remember that. R squared, rate and review. S, share the show. Share this show with someone who you think can relate to the podcast as a whole and today's topic. And then finally, subscribe. Subscribe so that you never miss another episode. And you can do that via your podcast playing app of choice through movingforwardleadership.com/subscribe. That's it for today, ladies and gentlemen. And as always, stop bossing and start leading. Take care now.